So a kind of big NBA trade just happened as the Boston Celtics just traded Kemba Walker to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The whole trade is Kemba Walker and the 16th pick in the 2021 draft, along with a 2025 second round pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Al Horford, Moses Brown, and a future 2023 second round pick to the Boston Celtics. I thought this was actually a pretty interesting trade and it was pretty unique. So in today's video, I'll be giving my thoughts on this trade and whether or not I think there was a clear winner, a clear loser, or if it was just a win-win trade. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does actually help my channel grow. Also subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. I literally post every single day, you could check. Also, if you subscribe, it would help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers, which would really be helpful. Also comment on this video, start a conversation with me as I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. So the Boston Celtics just got rid of Kemba Walker, which might make some Celtics fans smile in delight. And in this move, they're going to be getting back Al Horford, who was really good for them when he used to play for them a few years ago, along with Moses Brown and a future second round pick. To start the video off, I'm going to be discussing about Boston's side, and if I'm being honest, I think this is an absolutely fantastic move for the Celtics. There's possibly no way that they lost this trade. I had already said that I felt like this Boston Celtics team could actually be better without Kemba Walker on their team, because he was a huge defensive liability and he was a very inefficient and inconsistent scorer, and at times he would shoot them out of games, and he was just taking away shots from players like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are players who I believe should have gotten more shots, and I honestly believe this team is going to be better without him, because as I said, he wasn't really helping them out on the court. But don't forget, Kemba also had one of the worst contracts in the NBA right now, as he's making over $33 million for the next 2 seasons. So now we know that they're getting rid of a contract that is horrible, and they're getting rid of a player who, in my opinion at least, was making this team worse. And yes, they are getting another bad contract in return, but I believe Al Horford's contract is $6 to $8 million less, so they can maybe use that extra money on a different player to sign or a different player to re-sign. And Horford's contract isn't even fully guaranteed, and if he's not playing well in Boston, they could let him go or give him less money. They also got the better player out of the 2 contracts, because I think at this point, I'd rather have Al Horford on my team than Kemba Walker. But now to talk about what Boston actually got in this trade, they got a player in Al Horford who a lot of people think is a washed up player, but he's probably only a little bit worse than what he was on the Celtics, because just last season on the Thunder, he was a very solid player and he was still a very good defender and a guy who could space the floor out better than most centers, which is what the Boston Celtics need, and he was still a really good passer. Because last season, Horford was putting up 14 points and 6 rebounds and 3 assists while shooting 45% from the field and 36% from 3. Those are some solid numbers, and you have to realize that Horford was playing on a team that wasn't even trying to make the playoffs at all, so he probably wasn't trying as hard as he can, and he probably will on the Celtics. So there is a chance that he's even better than that. And unlike Kemba, there's no way or world where Horford is going to be a negative on this team, because the only reason he was a negative on the Philadelphia 76ers was the fact that the 76ers were playing him at the power forward spot, but now on the Celtics he's going to be playing the center position, and he's going to be pretty good at it. Since Horford's a player who can guard the perimeter at a better level than most centers in the NBA, he can also space the floor, so the paint will be more open for guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown to drive to the paint. Horford can also help some other players get open shots since he's a really good passer. Horford also isn't a player who needs the ball to shoot multiple times of the game. He can score 5 points and he'll be completely happy. I don't know if Kemba Walker could do that, and he doesn't need to even score the ball to be effective because he can do other things on the court. The only nitpick about him is the fact that he's not a great rebounder, but I think if the Celtics could surround him around players who could rebound as well, it won't be too much of a negative for them. The Celtics also got Moses Brown, who was a player who I would have liked to stay on the OKC OKC Thunder, simply because I believe he's a really nice young player with a lot of potential, and I think he could be a really good starting center in the NBA. But now he's going to Boston, which is a winning team, meaning they're not going to really have as much time and like patience to develop him as a team like the Thunder would. And Boston's a team that already has two really good centers in Al Horford and Robert Williams, and don't forget they also have Tristan Thompson, so I think it's going to be kind of hard for him to get minutes, and he plays very similar to Robert Williams, but Robert Williams at this point is just a way better player, so maybe Boston could look into getting something in return for him because he is a really good young player. But maybe there's a chance that I'm wrong and he will get playing time, but he's definitely a good player, and the fact that Boston got a good player is definitely a W. Boston also got a second round pick, which is cool because it could be used for future trades and stuff like that. But nonetheless, this is a huge W for Boston. They got rid of one of the worst contracts in the NBA, and it was a player who was making their team worse, and now they're getting a guy who can make their team significantly better, in my opinion. So there's just no way you can look at this move and see that Boston took an L. And if I'm a Boston fan, I would be jumping up and down on my couch right now. But now to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder side of the move. The Thunder got Kemba Walker along with the number 16 pick in this year's draft and a future second round pick. And if we're being honest, Kemba Walker is probably not going to stay on this team for a long time, because although he's not a player who's not necessarily in his prime, despite the fact that a lot of people think he's trash, I still think he'd be a player who can help out on a winning team, and I expect OKC to probably either trade him or buy him out of his money. I don't know if Kemba would want to buy out because that is a lot of money he would be giving up, but I honestly don't think he's going to be on this team for a long time, and I think it could be better for both of them to part ways. But if we're being honest, this wasn't a bad move to OKC because they did get the number 16 pick in this year's draft, and we know how Sam Presti loves his draft picks. And getting rid of Al Horford is not a big deal at all, since Al Horford is not anything close to a young player and he was on a bad contract. But I do think getting rid of Moses Brown could be a really negative thing in the future if he reaches his full potential, because he had some really impressive performances this past season. I bet his trade value probably was less than the 16th pick in the draft, so I don't think they took a step back, but they actually did get rid of a good player, Moses Brown. That has to be acknowledged. Both the 16th pick, they could potentially get a player who's just as good as him or even way better, but there is a chance they could also get a player who's worse than him. But anyways, we have to remember that this OKC Thunder front office has been really good when it comes to picking out talent, so we shouldn't assume that they're going to make a mistake. I don't think OKC lost this trade at all, but I do think they weren't like the winners of this trade, but they definitely benefited from this trade, which is still a W for them and their front office. But to conclude the video, this was clearly a move that I think benefited all of these teams. No team walked out with an L, but if I had to name one winner, it would probably go to the Celtics, since they didn't lose anything of much significance except for the first round pick. But Boston has been pretty bad at drafting as of late, so I don't think they would have done an amazing pick. But nonetheless, both teams definitely won this trade, and both teams definitely improved. OKC improved for the future, and Boston improved for right now. Anyways guys, that's it for the video. Let me know who you think won this trade. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want more NBA content like this, and if you can help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers, that would be really appreciated. Comment on this video, start a conversation, guys. I do respond to all of my comments, and I'm out.